Now, if you're from Florida, you might have heard the story of Josiah T. Walls, all right? He was Florida's first black congressman. But if you didn't, don't worry, I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now, Josiah was born in Virginia in 1842, but he was born into slavery, all right? He used to work cotton fields, whole nine. But when he got older, he ended up escaping and being caught later on in Yorktown. Now, shortly after, he ended up joining the colored troops, all right? And he, climbed up the ladder pretty quickly because he became sergeant. Now, when slavery was abolished, he ended up leaving New York and heading toward Florida, and he landed in Alachua County. Now, when Josiah got to Florida, he was discharged from the colored troops, all right? And he couldn't find work. But luckily, when he was fighting with the troops, he learned math and reading. So they let him get a job as a teacher in Alachua County. So Josiah was a teacher for a few years, but as I was doing research, there's a large gap in between him being a teacher and going into politics, all right? But around this time, okay, Florida, the state of Florida, actually let black people run for office. So Josiah took full advantage of that, and so did a few other black candidates. Now, Josiah was a Republican, all right? But the Democratic candidate had more power and money. So all the other black candidates dropped out so he could win. Now, Josiah ends up winning, all right? Now, this is a big thing because now he's the first black person to hold Senate in the 13th district in Florida. But it didn't last long, all right? Because the person he was going against, the Democratic nominee, he contested and wanted a recount, and the other guy won. So they removed him from the seat. But he did not let that stop him because a few years later, he ran again and he won, and he was able to hold the seat his whole term. Now, while he was in office, all right, he did some good things, all right? So he established the educational fund, and he also created a pension for the Seminole War veterans. Now, in 1874, he went up for re-election, all right, and he ended up winning. But the person that he went up against, okay, they didn't like the results, they questioned it, and of course, the other person won. All right, and they kicked him out of the seat again. Now, after he was kicked out of the seat for the second time, 2 years later, he ran again and ended up winning. But this time, it was the 2nd district instead of the 13th. They redistricted that district, and he was able to win and held the term the whole time. Now, I didn't mention this, all right? But in 1874, he ended up passing the bar exam, all right? So he became a lawyer same time he was doing politics. But when politics was over, he ended up opening up a law firm with his buddy in Alachua County. And in the midst of all of this going on, he was the mayor of Gainesville twice. Now, they don't have a lot of information about that inside of the articles, but it does say that he was the mayor of Gainesville for 2 terms. Now, after he practiced law for a little while, his buddies, his partners that he was doing law with, they ended up picking up and going to Tallahassee. But he stayed in Alachua County and opened up a farm that was really successful. But in 1895, with the Florida freeze, all right, he lost a lot of his crop and everything, so he had to pick up, and he also moved to Tallahassee. Now, when Josiah got to Tallahassee, he did not stop. Already kept going. He ended up getting a job as the farm director at FAMU University until he died, May 15th, 1905. So shout out to Josiah. The more you know. Peace.